what hour your clock strikes. Here, it's always Halloween, and I'm always your haunted host, Luce Tomlin Brenner. Welcome to Small Frights Friday. On these episodes, I like to share a curated selection of calls from the All Hallows Hotline and letters from the EEEEK mailbag. Before we hear from our fellow Luceo Lanterns, I want to welcome the newest member of our Patreon Ghoul Gang, Sonia Mulford. Welcome, Sonia. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. We are now only $235 away from our first goal of $500 a month, which is how much it costs to produce the podcast. Thank you so much, Sonia and the entire Ghoul Gang, for ensuring we can keep It's Always Halloween going, independent, ad-free, and sustainable. If you want to support the podcast, you can subscribe at patreon.com/itsalwayshalloween, or you can make a one-time donation via the tip jar. Both are linked in our show notes. Our next Ghoul Gang movie night is this Saturday, July 31st, starting at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you have all voted to watch an incredible Summerween double feature of I Know What You Did Last Summer paired with I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Y'all, this truly makes my inner Scream Queen shriek, as I have loved these movies since I first saw them at 13, 14, 15. I'm not sure of my exact age. I just remember that I had never really watched a traditional slasher movie all the way through before. And when I saw this, it just kicked off my lifelong obsession. So I'm very excited to present these two films. They're so nostalgic to me. They're really a lot of fun, and they're creepy, and they're a little violent, but they're mostly just popcorny fun movies. And I mean, it's got Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar. You guys, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is in this movie, where she meets Freddie Prinze Jr. and then they fall in love, and now they have a wonderful marriage, 20 plus years later. Very impressive. Don't forget, they also went on to do Scooby-Doo together. And did I ever say Ryan Phillippe, my biggest crush when I was a teenager? It was tied. It was Ryan Phillippe, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Paul Walker. And I had a tribute wall to them that I called my Ryan Freddie Paul wall of pictures I had cut out from Teen Magazine and 17 and YM. I was very, very into them. So yes, and then also, secretly, because I hadn't totally figured myself out yet at that age, was also very into Sarah Michelle Gellar. Of course, every queer person out there in the world is yes, Sarah Michelle Gellar, of course. So we're going to have so much fun this weekend. I'm really excited to give you some history of the slasher subgenre and get into the connection that the genre and these movies have to Halloween. So you can sign up to join us on Patreon at the $10 or up level, or if you want to join us for just this double feature, it's a one-time $10 ticket cost, and you can pay via the tip jar anytime. Just if you do decide to go that way, message me after you pay so I know that that was what you're paying for, and I'll send you the cast link. I live stream all of our films over Cast, and I come on over video and do a full discussion, and then we chat throughout the movie as well. It's a really fun community experience. The price of your ticket pays for the cost of the streaming app, as well as the labor and time that I put into researching and hosting the event. So I hope to see you guys there. And speaking of horror movies, let's take a call and hear what one lantern prefers when it comes to creepy cinema.
Hello. I'm calling in response to one of your inquiries on Instagram about what scares a person when watching a horror movie. I'd like to put a little different angle on that, if I might. Sometimes I'm watching a horror movie and I'm not scared at all. And the reason I'm not scared is because I'm angry or disgusted about something. I find that those two things are deterrents to me being frightened. Mostly that happens when the viewers are introduced right off the bat to an obnoxious character, a character who is highly unlikable for one reason or another. I think I had that experience with the Blair Witch Project. I didn't like the female lead character. I thought she was annoying, and I didn't care what happened to her. There were several things in the movie that I found disturbing, but I always felt that, isn't her name Heather? I think her name was Heather. I always felt she was so obnoxious that she deserved whatever happened to her. And I found that has happened with me in other movies, that I dislike the character so much that I'm almost rooting for something horrific to happen to them. I also think that sometimes I'm not scared when I find that whatever is occurring is so undeserving to the characters that it just seems so unfair that kind of overtakes my attitude of being fearful for them. I'm just annoyed that something terrible has happened to them because they're just living their lives and they don't deserve this junk that's happening at all. And so that kind of takes me, I guess both of those instances take me out of the movie-going experience. Perhaps that's it. And either one of those prevents me from being frightened. And I think that's interesting. And perhaps directors or writers, script writers, need to keep that in mind, that either one of those situations can prevent viewers from really being frightened at all during the viewing of that particular movie. All right, well, I hope I haven't taken this too far off course, but I just thought it was interesting. And it occurred to me while I was thinking about your question about what really scares us when we're watching a horror movie. That's it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for your call. Those are really interesting points. And I do definitely feel that way, very similar, although I love the Blair Witch Project and I did not feel the same way about Heather. But I've definitely watched movies where you're supposed to root for the character and every choice they make is dumb, or just, you project on them. So you're like, I would never do that. Even though we have no idea what we would do in these absolutely outsized, crazy heightened scenarios. I tend to watch it, and I'm sure we all do, and just be like, it's the classic running upstairs instead of running out the front door. It's very easy when we're safe and cozy to know what we would do. But, there's a movie that I love called Creep that I know is pretty popular in the horror community, and I enjoyed everything about it. I thought it was a perfect horror film, start to finish. I thought it was very shocking. I thought it was really scary and odd and disturbing, but also really funny. I thought the acting was great, very unique. Absolutely adored it. 5 stars. Highly recommend if you like horror movies. And then there was a sequel, Creep 2, which I know many people in the community also love, but the character in Creep 2 made me insane. And I disliked her so much, and I thought every decision she made was absolutely ludicrous. And I don't know if I should chalk that up to this specific male writer who just doesn't know the kinds of things that women would do, because I thought it was very unbelievable. Every choice that she made, I was like, I just don't think a woman would do these things. Being alone with a strange man in the woods after answering an internet call. I sound like I'm 1,000 years old. After answering an internet ad, being like, I'll go into the woods at night to visit this man, which is part of the conceit of the beginning of that story. I was lost from the beginning. I was like, this is dumb. So then every single thing she did, I was like, dumb. And I was just waiting for things to go wrong. And then for me, I totally lost all the suspense. So I think when a character is not grounded in reality or details that are really flushed out, that are more than just anybody could be this character. Sometimes a character's not written in depth enough so that you don't understand their motivations or their voice, and they don't feel like a real person. It's kind of just a vehicle for dialogue that the writer really likes. That happens a lot in horror movies, and I think that's when it's really hard to pay attention, unless it's something that's like so campy and you're kind of watching it for these like slasher movies, for example. Like so many of the Friday the 13th movies, not a lot of character depth, but they are really fun and they're creative and they're spooky. So I still get like a lot out of those. It really depends on, I think, the theme, the tone of the film, how serious it's taking itself and how serious it wants the audience to take it. Speaking to your point about not liking when terrible things happen to good people, I feel like that's a lot of the horror genre. And I think there's an interesting intersection between like, okay, well, we don't care what happens. Like, we stop paying attention to annoying bad people, but we also don't want bad things to happen to good people. I'm curious about like what's in the middle. And I really think it's more about good writing and fleshed out characters with clear motivations. Because I do relate to when things are just getting like worse and worse and worse for like a good person, it feels very sadistic in a way that doesn't please me or entertain me at all. I felt that way about the Stephen King adaptation of The Mist, which had a different ending than the novella, which I love. And I know a lot of people like the new ending, and Stephen King himself even said that he liked it, but it made me furious. And I have been like walking around with that anger ever since I saw it. I felt like I had been duped because the ending was so mean-spirited and didn't, in my mind, align with what we had learned about the main character up until that point. It felt like a very edgelord, like shocking ending. Like, oh, I got you. Isn't this so crazy? So messed up. Wow, I really made you sad, huh? Like, I just hate when I'm watching a movie and I feel like the dude is just like somebody in my like math class who's like poking me like, so I get you. It's hard to find a horror movie that really hits on all levels, but that's why I really like 80s stuff a lot. That's just like very fun and splattery, and I really love effects. When you're just dealing with people and you're trying to do like an emotional horror movie, I think those are really hard. And we're seeing a lot of those lately because Ari Aster, I think, really kicked off the like, let's explore grief through horror. And so like a lot of people who maybe like haven't had enough therapy or like don't really understand grief or trauma are like, let's explore these like really intense things where like every bad thing that can happen to you is a ghost, but is it really a ghost or is it the grief from your dead child? Like, it's just a lot. I don't think everyone's equipped to write those stories. So I would love to get back into more supernatural stories. Something I think that works really well about the Conjuring movies is how much the fictionalized characters of Ed and Lorraine Warren love each other and want to protect people. And like, if you take out the religious aspects of it and just kind of think of it as like love protecting you from darkness, it's really sweet, but it's also like very scary, and all the monsters and ghosts are really good. And the directors and James Wan, and then I liked the new one, but I don't remember the new director's name, but they're good at building up suspense and chaos and unexpected events, and yeah, it's hard to do. Lots of people can make horror movies because they're like the most guaranteed, like they're cash cows, but like not everyone can make a good horror movie. So I think all horror fans know you have to slog through quite a bit. And I think a lot of us are more forgiving than typical viewers would be. But thanks so much for your insight on that. And I'd love to hear from other lanterns and what scares them when it comes to horror movies, or what irritates you when you're watching a horror movie, what takes you out of the moment. Very interesting conversation. All right, well, let's take another hotline call. This one is from a new lantern who I am just so excited to hear from, because this call is jam-packed with the most Halloween spirit you've ever heard.
Hi, Luce. I'm Julian. I found your podcast about a month ago, and I'm almost caught up. I've been rationing the episodes in order to keep up the Halloween spirit. I have a couple different things I'm calling about. So first up, this year is my last Halloween before I turn 18. and I am absolutely determined to make it epic. Right now I'm thinking of doing a hyper-realistic corpse costume, or like a really cool vampire if that ends up being too graphic to wear on my 4-year-old sister. I'm hopefully going to have a costumes dinner party with some of my friends, and we're going to watch some spooky movies, eat Halloween food, and have a Halloween scavenger hunt. At least I'm really hoping we get to do those things. I'm actually leaving for a road trip to Universal Studios with my school choir on Halloween night, so I have to have my party at least a week early. To get over the fact that we won't be able to trick-or-treat this year, my younger siblings and I have been going hard on the year-round celebrations. I'm pretty proud of the fact that they're into Halloween because for the first 9 years of my life, we were homeschooled and didn't celebrate because Mom thought it was demonic. When we started going to public school, though, I fell in love with Halloween and I managed to convince her to let us celebrate. So that's my legacy, I guess. Next are some of my favorite ways to have Halloween year-round. I'm not really into horror, so some things that I watch throughout the year to stay in the spooky spirit are the TV show Ruby Gloom, the first 2 seasons of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, R.L. Stein's Goosebumps and The Haunting Hour, and of course classic kid horror like Coraline, Corpse Bride, and Frankenweenie. I'm very excited to try out some of the other things that listeners have recommended. I also have a Halloween theme on my phone, so like my wallpaper, lock screen, app icons, keyboard, and my ringtone are all Halloween-y. It's really awesome. I cook a lot, so throughout the year I save up any spooky recipe I want to try throughout official spooky month, and I also like to come up with my own ideas to try. I'm very excited about making pumpkin soup in a pumpkin, and I found a mini apple pie that uses a ball of apple that's painted to look like an eyeball. I absolutely can't wait to try it. I'm also going to try to recreate some Nestle Halloween cookies this October. Another thing that I like to do that's super simple but so satisfying is make little Halloween crafts. I usually look up Halloween crafts for kids because they tend to be like cuter and not too complicated to be fun. Plus, a lot of adult crafts are more like classy than spooky, I've found. A couple months ago, I made a Days Till Halloween countdown by cutting some holes in a sheet of watercolor paper, painting it with candy, spiderwebs, skulls, ghosts, and pumpkins, and putting some strips of paper with numbers on them to look through the holes. I wanted to share some Halloween experiences that I've had lately. So on July 23rd, which was the day that there was 100 days left until Halloween, and also the day of the most recent Small Frights episode, I went into Walmart, and thanks to some really cool coincidence, the fall-themed bandanas have been put out. I wear bandanas a lot because I have short hair that's difficult to style and also to keep my hair away when I'm cooking. So I bought 3 of them. One's got orange and black bats, one has pumpkins and some black leaves and stuff, and one is black with fall leaves. And that day was also a full moon. And the night before that, my best friend, whose birthday is a few days before Halloween, had like a whole cloud of bats flying around her swimming pool while she was in it. Apparently some of them came really close to hitting her, so the 2 of us had a very spooky week. That's all for today. I will call back or something closer to calendar Halloween to tell you some stories and let you know some of my other plans. There's a book I'm ordering that has some very good short ghost stories that I'm very excited to share with you. I wish you a very spooky week. Happy Halloween.
Julian, welcome, and thank you for that absolutely outstanding call. I am so excited for you that you have like the craziest, most exciting sounding holiday season lined up, and I wish I was there. You have planned it to the hilt, and you sound so excited, not at all like anxious about it. I'm very, very impressed, and I think we can all take some inspiration from this plan. I love the realistic corpse idea. Very freaky. I tried to be a realistic mummy a few years ago for Halloween, and I really enjoyed not being like a licensed character or something that was connected to like the newest TV show or film. It was cool to go back to the basics and just be like, I'm a mummy. And I think it's a really fun idea to be like, yeah, I'm a corpse. Like, that's super gross and scary. and would be delightful at a dinner party where everyone is eating. I think it's so cool that your friends are doing a Halloween dinner party because that way you get to like actually talk about things. Sometimes at regular parties, like the music is so loud and there's like tons of people you don't know and you're not necessarily seeing the people you want to see. But I love like a planned dinner party. Everybody dresses up. You could have like this really extensive, fun menu. And if you love to cook, that's absolutely perfect. And you can even play some like pre-dinner games or post-dinner games and have like fun little themed beverages and like little side dishes. I'm just dreaming up your menu for you. I'm so excited for this party. I also saw that little video about the apple pie with the eye in it, and I'm obsessed. It looks challenging to make, but you said you love cooking, so please, if you make it, send us pictures. I want to see what it looks like when like a hobbyist does it, because that video, of course, is like obviously like a professional pastry chef. But it's always like the nailed it episodes where I'm like, I'm going to create this thing I saw on Pinterest. And then it's like real gloppy and like a sad nightmare animal. Like, how did this happen? This is God's mistake. But it doesn't deter me. Halloween is the one time I lay it all out on the line because I'm like, I don't care if my hands don't do what my brain tells them to do. I got to make themed meals. So yes, please fill us in on how all of this goes. We are anxious for updates. Also, I think it is so fascinating that you grew up in a home where your mom was anti-Halloween. I'm so sorry, but congrats to you for being able to get her on the side of Halloween, or at least to tolerate Halloween. And your siblings must be so grateful. You really experienced the dry years so that they could thrive on All Hallows Eve. And I think it's so great that you're able to, you know, people talk a lot about on the podcast how it feels nostalgic for childhood, but I think it's really interesting when people grow up and they're not necessarily nostalgic for like your younger years because you maybe didn't celebrate Halloween in your younger years. You are not alone, Julian. I've heard from tons of people who are either homeschooled or they just grew up in a religious household or they just grew up in an area of the world that doesn't celebrate Halloween and they came into their love in their teen years or in their 20s. And I think it's exciting because you get to define Halloween however you like. You're in total control and doesn't have to be ruled by nostalgia. Not that, you know, nostalgia isn't a bad thing, but occasionally as you know, dance closer to the grave, it can be a bit of a trap if you obsess too much about the bygone years. So I think what you're doing is really cool, totally building out your own traditions and plans and celebrations with your friends. It sounds like you're making a lot of really new special memories and that you're really in the beginning of your Halloween journey still, which is awesome. Thank you so much for all these great recommendations, too. I've never heard of Ruby Gloom, and I think it's so funny that you said the first 2 seasons of Sabrina, since those really are the bangers. I mean, I watched it to the end, but that series finale, woof. Coraline's one of my all-time favorite movies. I think it is so scary. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this is scary. This is one of the scariest movies that's like ever been made, like at PG. Like Coraline and Return to Oz have very similar vibes to me, and I just want the world to make more frightening PG movies so that like kids aren't treated with such like bubble wrapped hands that like they can't possibly be exposed to anything challenging. Like artistic, imaginative stories like that breed artistic, imaginative children, and we need to, you know, the world's difficult, so we need to have some fun ways to process how difficult things are so that, you know, you aren't just thrown into it shocked at an older age, and you can learn how to like deal with some of life's troubles and challenges through art, the way I do. And you really nailed the whole like Halloween crafts for kids are more fun and relaxing. And As you get older, adult stuff is always trying to be really classy. And my whole thing is like, who are you fooling? Like, it's Halloween. Why does Halloween have to be classy? Like, I love Victorian style stuff, and there's definitely something to a theme. But also Halloween is like creepy and bizarre and disturbing and otherworldly, and it's like about the veil between the living and the dead being thin and us communing with spirits. Why does that have to be classy? Just enjoy things that are gross. It's fine. That's my message to other adults. The more into adulthood I grow, the more I don't like being around adults. Anybody else feel me on that? Anywho, getting off the beaten path a little bit, Julian, but you have inspired me tonight. Can't wait to hear more about those ghost stories and everything else that you've got planned for calendar Halloween. You are rocking it. I am proud of you and inspired by you, and I can't wait to hear more. So happy you found the podcast. Watch out for those clouds of bats. Maybe you could train them and make them your pets. They could do your bidding. Something else to consider for this season. All right, well, we are going to get into our first EEEEKmail. And this one is coming from Ruth, who is one of our Ghoul Gang members. And she says, so glad to have you back, Luce. How can we watch your upcoming films after the premiere? Sadly, Halloween thrifting does seem to be really hard. I found one charity shop a couple of years ago that had clearly gotten lots of leftover stock from a pound shop, so that was really great. But it's usually slim pickings. I managed to get a cool rockabilly-style dress once with skulls and roses all over it, so that will definitely be incorporated to my spooky attire for Halloween weekend this year. And yes, definitely listen to Radio Rental. The first season of Scary Stories is really good. The second season is a bit meh. Mostly people going, I think something might be happening, but I ignored it and ran away, so I guess I'll never know. The premise is really good too. Basically, it's about a shop owner that rents out these bootlegged copies of real scary stories for people to listen to. The owner is played by Rainn Wilson, and he has these silly conversations that add some levity to the stories. There's also a new spin-off series called Dark Air by Terry Carnation, again with Rainn Wilson. It's owned by Tenderfoot TV. One of the owners, Payne Lindsay, is quite well known after his podcast, Up and Vanished, helped with solving a couple of cold cases. I have a couple more podcasts to recommend. Grim and Mild Productions have released another podcast series called Haunted Road. The host is exploring haunted locations across the U.S. I would definitely check it out if this is your thing. The first episode is on the Visalia murder house. I really enjoyed it. Finally, I recommend the Battersea Poltergeist. This is a British-produced podcast by the BBC. It details the story of a poltergeist haunting of Shirley Hitchens in 1956. It's a bit of a haunting story/mystery whodunit, and the host tries to unravel what's fact and what was possibly fabricated or even imagined. Wow, Ruth, thank you so much for these recommendations. I had not heard of any of these except for Up and Vanished, which I haven't listened to because cold cases stress me out. But I am familiar with like the history of Up and Vanished and how people love it. I do really enjoy Grim and Mild a lot. Laura was very, very inspirational to me in building this podcast. And I enjoyed his 13 Days of Halloween that came out last year as well. So I'm excited to check out Haunted Road. I hadn't heard of it, but I do love haunted histories. And so the other one really appeals to me as well, Battersea Poltergeist. And I like the idea of breaking down like urban legends, essentially picking through like what's fact, what's fiction, because I mean, sometimes it really ruins the story, right? Because oftentimes urban legends are so much more fun because they're, there's stories that are passed down over years and generations, and people put a little spice into it to make it more exciting. Then you find out the actual story and you're like, oh, it's just a dude that killed another dude in the woods? Like, okay, that sucks. Like, it's, you boil it down to just like one person being kind of terrible to another person, and it loses the edge of like hooks and whispers and all of the ghostly fog in the darkness. If you turn on the lights at a specific time, you might hear a voice. Like, there's so much excitement in those types of urban legends. But I do, at the same time, while I love keeping an urban legend pure, the history nerd inside of me is also like, yes, let's pick apart fact from fiction. So I haven't heard of this haunting before, and I love that it's a ghost story / whodunit. So really great recommendations, Ruth. Thank you so much. And Ruth is calling from the UK. She wrote in from the UK, not a call. And I had not heard the phrase pound shop before, and it took me a minute, and I was like, yes, of course, a dollar store. So I looked up Pound Shop, and poundshop.com has so many incredible things on it. And like, wow, this is great. We have a 99-cent store in the LA area that is like my favorite place for Halloween goods. And there weren't that many Halloween things on poundshop.com, but I did find this really cool toy called the Smasher's Gross Eyeball. And it's like a plastic eyeball that you throw on the ground, and then it says, what's inside this slimy eyeball? Just throw and smash it against the ground and find a disgustingly gross character hiding inside. Rebuild and resmash your Smasher's eyeball over and over again. You'll need a seriously calm stomach to get through this gross smash pack. With access to glow-in-the-dark characters like the Horrid Hand, the smashing will never end. Smash your smashers on the ground, the wall, or anywhere you can think of to start building your smashing collection today. I'm obsessed with that copy, and I absolutely need one of these gross eyeballs. The characters on the front are like rancid Chinese food, a poopy toilet, which I'm not super into, and then like rotted trash. I can't imagine this toy. I've never heard of it before. Is this a British toy? Please tell me if anyone out there has gotten a Smasher's eyeball before. It looks amazing / terrible. Anyways, there's like a couple of small Halloween things on poundshop.com. And I don't know, Ruth, if you're being specific about poundshop.com or just talking generally about pound shops, but now that I have learned the word, I do want to say it over and over again, and I love it. Congrats on your really cool rockabilly dress find. Very impressive. And you guys, guess what? I actually have another EEEEKmail from the inside. Somebody who knows all about these issues with thrift stores that we've been talking about. This is all spurned from the last week's episode where Brian called in to ask us if we had trouble tracking down really good Halloween things at thrift shops. Well, listen to this. I have a new EEEEKmail I'm going to share with you. Hello, my name is Aubrey. I just found your podcast last week. I'm listening to the newest episode and the talk on thrifting from Brian. I love Halloween, and I was a thrift shop worker for many years. You are 100% correct. There is not much Halloween stuff on the shelves anymore. The reason for that is because large businesses like Goodwill and Value Village now rely on and expect tons of traffic between September and November. At both Value Village and Goodwill, we were specifically instructed to never ever put Halloween things on the floor before September. The rule was to set it aside, box it up, and then put nothing out but Halloween stuff starting mid-September. So it sounds like no matter what time of year it was, you had to put it away, and then as soon as mid-September came around, then only Halloween mid-September to November, which, you know, Aubrey, I wish you could have told them that the rest of us are out here ready to celebrate Halloween mid-July, the 100-day countdown. Okay, Aubrey goes on to say, it's really sad. The large chains are now so focused on maximizing profits that they took away all of the thrill of the hunt. If you want to find Halloween stuff year-round, I suggest finding non-chain thrift stores that are local. Also, you should talk to the owners and workers. I had regulars who would ask us to let them know when things came in that they collected, and we employees loved helping them out when we could. Aubrey, this EEEEKmail was a game changer. This makes so much sense, and I stopped going to my Goodwill, like not stopped entirely. That would be crazy. I don't go to my Goodwill here in LA as often anymore just because everything does feel very like strategic and less hunt-like. But one year I did find, I think I told you guys about my kindergarten Halloween teacher witchy jumper, which I did post a picture of this week on Instagram if you want to see it at It's Always Halloween Podcast. But then the other really cool Halloween thing I found was at the Goodwill in Los Feliz, Los Angeles, I found a Halloween 3 Season of the Witch t-shirt for $3. And it's like my favorite t-shirt that I own. I wear it all the time. But I've never found like home goods type stuff. Not since I was like a kid. So good to know that you got to stay local. And hey, I mean, Goodwill is a good organization, but I love local independent people. I love giving money directly to people and knowing that it's going to go to support them and their family. So would love to hear from anybody on their like favorite local thrift shops. Maybe we can like spread the word amongst the Halloween community. You're probably out there being like, no way am I going to tell you about my favorite thrift shop. That's how I'm going to keep it good. I thought about that as soon as it came out of my mouth. So you know what? Do what makes you feel right. What makes you feel good, which makes your heart feel content. All right. Thank you for that hot tip, Aubrey, all that insider info. Very much appreciated. Let's go on to our next hotline call.
Hi, Lucy. I'm Izzy from Atlanta, or Comic Creep on Instagram, and just started listening to your wonderful, magical podcast. You were talking about the Teal Pumpkin Project a few episodes back, and I wanted to mention a fun thing that my work does every year. I work at a comic shop, and we have what's called Halloween Comic Fest, and we give out mini comics to trick-or-treaters every year. We also sell packs for people to give away instead of candy with a cheeky sign that says, rot their minds, not their teeth. They're hid at my house, so hopefully the Ghoul Gang can hit up their local comic shops for some goodies, too. I also wanted to recommend a graphic novel to everyone called The Nocturnals by Dan Brereton. Dan's art is the epitome of Halloween, and there's even a character named Halloween Girl, so I think you guys will enjoy it. Anyways, thanks again for all the joy you bring to the Halloween community. Bye.
Izzy, thank you so much for this fascinating call. I love that your shop hands out comics to people. The idea of giving comics as a trick-or-treat treat is really cute and really fun and much more exciting than like pennies or a toothbrush or something narc-like. That's such a cute idea, and I think it's so cool that it just sounds like you have such a cool job. I love your Instagram at Comics Creep. So you guys should check her out. And I'm really interested in this book, The Nocturnals. So I had not heard of it before. I looked it up, and I just want to give like a little rundown for people who aren't familiar with it. So the author is Dawn Brereton, as you said, and The Nocturnals is a lush, innovative, action-packed series of stories of the supernatural menace and gritty heroics. I'm pulling this from Skylight Books, which is my favorite indie bookstore in Los Angeles, where the link that's in the show notes for you to order it, you can order through them and they ship. They go on to say that there's a brand new omnibus collection coming out that starts with Black Planet, which is the Eisner-nominated graphic novel, which kicked off years of captivating weird tales of horror and crime. So this collection has Black Planet, The Witching Hour, Carnival of Beasts, Troll Bridge, and The Dark Forever. Oof. What a totally compelling group of words. All of those sound so good, so ominous, bizarre, and fun. So the Nocturnals revolves around the mysterious quest of underworld enforcer and occult figure Doc Horror, his supernaturally gifted daughter Evening, cute name, aka Halloween Girl, who Izzy mentioned, and Halloween Girl carries a pumpkin full of haunted toys. Very cool accessory. The other characters are the Gun Witch, a silent two-gun revenant with an itch to kill monsters, and the Lysum Wraith Polychrome. Plus, there are a host of hard-boiled inhuman players battling hidden evils lurking on the outskirts of human knowledge. Wow, that description really packs a wallop. Izzy, what a terrific recommendation. Thank you so much. Welcome to It's Always Halloween. I'm so happy you found us, and I look forward to hearing more from you, more awesome recommendations. Like I said, if any folks out there are interested in the Nocturnals, there is more info on it in the show notes. Speaking of the show notes, I would like to welcome you to a new corner here, a new little segment of the podcast that I'm calling the Event Nook. Come to my nook, hear about ghostly events. So now that we are, as Julian said, less than 100 days away from the calendar Halloween, events are just popping up like crazy all around, and I want to share them with you in the hopes that everyone can experience as much joy as possible from this 2021 season. I know a lot of us are making up for lost time. And you know what? Probably a lot of us are making out too, because last year was a lonely year. Make up, make out, and head to a Halloween event. So the other thing I wanted to say is I think it's a great way to connect with other lanterns if that's something that interests you. We've made a lot of friend connections over the Discord and on our Instagram page. So I love that we could hook up at some of these events and get to know each other and become closer friends IRL. So as you know, I'm in LA, so my calendar is skewed heavily towards Southern California events. So please send any spooky gatherings you want to promote into the podcast. But coming up, I'll be hosting a lantern meetup at Awaken the Spirits in Pasadena, Sunday, August 15th at 1:30. If you'd like to join us, they actually still have single day tickets available for Sunday. And they also have weekend phantom passes as of this recording. So that link will be in the show notes. Please come out to Awaken the Spirits. It'd be great to meet you. I think there's about 5 or 6 of us who are going to be getting together and going to a couple panels together. So I'm really looking forward to getting to speak to some of you in person. Okay, the next couple of events I have are also in SoCal. So first, the Oddities Flea Market is happening October 23rd and the 24th in LA. And that was sent in by Ghoul Gang member Mindy. Thanks so much, Mindy. That link will be in the show notes. And then Ashley from the Ghoul Gang sent in the Orange County's Creep It Real Expo for all things Halloween. And this event includes vendors, haunt experiences, music, food, and spooky fun panels. And that's a one-day event on Sunday, September 12th from 12 to 6 p.m. at the Heritage Museum of Orange County in Santa Ana. Very cool. Thanks, Ashley. And then let's head up to the Pacific Northwest. Starting on October 8th is Milbourne's Haunted Manor. This is a haunted house on a farm. And this was sent in by Ghoul Gang member Tom, who told us he's really excited about it. So that's in the show notes as well. That's it for now, you guys. But help us diversify the locations and types of events by sharing your favorites, either by calling in on the hotline 802-532-DEAD, or dropping us an email to itsalwayshalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. You may have noticed these events were all sent in by Ghoul Gang members, and that's because we have a special Discord channel devoted to Halloween news and events where a lot of planning and exciting activities get shared. So You can get on our Discord server by joining the Patreon Ghoul Gang at the $3 a month level. For only $3 a month, you can socialize your butts off. There's, I think, 15 or so different specific channels where we talk about movies and podcasts and books, and we share pictures of our decor and our costumes, and it's very fun, very personal. I've been enjoying it a lot. So that's for only $3 a month. As I said at the top of the episode, if you love It's Always Halloween, please subscribe at patreon.com/It's Always Halloween, or you can make that one-time donation using our tip jar. Both links are in the show notes. You can also support the podcast by buying It's Always Halloween merch on Redbubble. That link is in our show notes as well, and our Instagram, It's Always Halloween podcast as well. This episode of It's Always Halloween was performed by me, Luce Tomlin Brenner, with help from your fellow lanterns, including Izzy, Ruth, Aubrey, Mindy, Ashley, and Tom. Thanks so much for all of your wonderful contributions. Could not do this without you. The editing, theme music, and sound design is by the magnificently spooky Pete Burns. Thanks, Pete. You can follow me personally on Instagram and Twitter at LTBcomedy and Pete at Mittenberries. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe and write us a little review so that other like-minded ghouls can find us. This week, I want to share one that I know applies to the way most of us consume Halloween delights. So this is from They Call Me WOJ, and the headline is The Scariest Thing. The scariest thing is that I'm probably going to make it through the archives of this terrorific show, love that, well before the first leaf hits the ground this year. Thank you, Luce, for your wonderfully researched, delightful tour through the holiday that forever haunts my heart. This podcast is my cozy place. Well, thank you, They Called. This podcast is my cozy place, and I'm happy to extend it to all of you. So much room under the Halloween blanket. So I really appreciate the ratings and reviews. As we march closer to calendar Halloween, there's a lot of people battling to get their voices heard. And hey, you know, I'm not that competitive, but I do want people to hear this podcast. It's my dream to make my living from this podcast and get to work on it all the time, have Halloween be my job. So you can help by doing a free and easy thing, which is just giving us a quick 5 stars and a few sentences about what you love about the podcast, and that'll keep us to the top of the list. Thanks so much, guys. You know, we're also on the NPR One app, and you can subscribe there as well, which I'm desperately trying to get Ira Glass's attention, so hopefully he will see those subscriptions on NPR One. All right, thank you so much for listening to yet another cozy episode of It's Always Halloween, and please come back next time, unless you get captured by the Blair Witch and then thrown back for being too irritating. That's on you.